Good morning, welcome to this morning coffee break. Today we have Kent-affiliated referee Andrew Wheaton. How are you doing, Andrew?
I'm alright, mate. Thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. I'd like to ask everybody, before we start going, what coffee have you got yourself?
Listen, this is going to be the most referee response to a coffee. I've got a plain black Americano coffee.
Do you know what? I've got nothing special. I've got granulated, straight out the thing. I don't even know what brand it is. It's just a spoonful of something, but it tastes good with a big lump of milk in it. So it does me wonders.
Yeah, I'm not doing refs a service there. Yeah, just plain boring old coffee.
So we spoke on your podcast a week or so ago, and I was really interested in getting you on today because I've never had a referee, and like speaking to you after your show, I've never thought of talking to a referee or what goes through your head before a game and during, after, etc. So I've got a few bits we're going to go through and just tell us your story, really.
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, Andrew.
I'm Andrew. My name's Andrew Wheaton. I'm a level 5 referee. Currently, that means I'm a senior county level ref. I'm a couple of rungs up from the sort of entry level. I've been through a couple of promotion seasons and obviously been successful in that. Referee mainly now Sunday football only. Have refereed in the step system and other Saturday leagues. But because the podcast is focused mainly around Sunday league, that's been my focus, to be able to be credible and know a bit more about the teams that I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I looked at we go through your CV in a few moments' time.
Yeah.
And there's you've done a lot. I see your game count was approximately 350 games. That is a lot of minutes on a football pitch. But
I mean, when I started refereeing, I was doing every single game I could. So I was doing midweeks, Saturdays, and Sunday morning and afternoon. So I was just trying to really get used to refereeing because it takes a lot of getting used to. Having to run away from the ball for a start or not touch the ball was weird. But yeah, at the beginning, I was probably doing between 30 and 40 games a season. You had to do that. You had to do a minimum of 20 to do the promotion season anyway. So I mean, now I'm probably doing about 20. So maybe more, probably 30 now. But it was crazy the amount of football I was doing before.
Yeah, and like you said, we'll talk about your podcast later on. That's taken off big time. So I guess trying to fit that around everything as well, it's juggling two plates. But what got you into it? Because what a lot of people don't know is when I was about 14, 15, I did a refereeing badge. I did route course. And like I said to you off record after we spoke on your podcast, I did one game on the line and I got abused. And I remember absolutely thinking, this isn't for me, I can't do this. I remember after that, though, I appreciated blokes on the sideline. What got you into it?
I mean, it's a bit of a long story, really, and everything that I'm currently doing with the podcast and refereeing basically goes back, sadly, to the same story. And I'll say sadly because I'll be open and honest about it. About 15 years ago, my younger brother passed away tragically, and there was a lot of trauma going on in my life and all that stuff, and beer. Birds and other things became involved in my life, and basically came the time when I decided to stop doing all of that stuff. But I found myself around 24 stone was the highest weight that I hit, and I thought, well, how am I going to lose this weight? And I can't play football. My knees, I've had bad knees from the age of 11. Various knee injuries and operations meant that playing was out of reach to me. I thought, how do I stay in the game? Tried running a Sunday team with mates, which was great. It was fun. It was successful, and we loved it. But really, that only fed that sort of bad lifestyle that I was leading at the time. So I called it a day with that, and I thought, how do I stay in the game and get some fitness? And refereeing seemed to be the way in, a way in for me. So I inquired with the Kent FA, Nick Dunn, about the RDO over there about doing a course, and there was a course in the November, and that's it really. I took to it like a duck to water. Go on, mate.
No, you carry on.
I did the course, did the 6 games pretty much in 3 weeks. As part of the refereeing course, as you know, you have to sort of complete 6 games that you get watched and you get mentored, and they give you development points. And after those 6 games, you do a laws of the game test, which I passed, and then that's it. You're left out in the real world with the Sunday leaguers and the Saturday football.
The one thing I have to say off the back of that one is I'm not comparing what I did with refereeing anywhere near yours hype. I bottled it after 1 game, so I can't sit here and say I understand. I bottled it big time after that 1 game. But like you said, in the November, so 2011, you got yourself qualified, got yourself promoted to level 6. 2013 up to 5. So with going at these levels, what type of... You say they come out and watch your ref and over so many games. How do they kind of increase the level as such when you go up? What type of standards do they look for?
Right, so initially level 7 to 6. So the first step will be laws of the game. So are you applying things correctly? Are you showing the right arm signals for indirect free kicks? Your movement on the pitch, are you getting into good positions? Are you your diagonals and all that stuff? It's basic elementary things, the basics of refereeing that they're looking for in 7 to 6. But then when you go 6 to 5, it's a little bit more man management. Are you looking to use the stepped approach? So is it straight to cards, or is it talking to the player? Next one, bring the captain in, have a word, make it obvious that the player's getting near. So it's just small technicalities between 6 to 7, 7 to 6, and 6 to 5, which is the difference. So the level 5 is much more. There's more detail, and it's a bit more about the technical aspects of it, as opposed to just being in the right position, being credible, arm signals, whistle, all that stuff. So they'll look more at your communication and how you manage a game of football.
I completely get that. And my biggest fear, if I was a referee, would be making that decision and knowing I'm right, because you're going to have, if you put it against one team, you're going to have 11 blokes plus whoever watching, giving you potentially abuse, or telling you're wrong because this is the right call. When you make them decisions, and this is one that I always think as a ref, you know it's right. Is there a moment when you think there's a split second, this is going to cause absolute havoc, me calling this, or is it just instinct? You just call it, and then what happens after happens?
Do you know what? It's always... there's always big decisions in games, usually red cards or things like that, where you sort of think, if a less experienced referee might bottle a red in certain areas of the pitch or certain sort of points in the game for a yellow, just to save some issues. So that sort of, with experience, those decisions sort of go away. I think early doors, the first red that I would have had to show, I can't remember it, but it was probably a denying a goal scoring opportunity, red card, like last man sort of stuff, although that's not a thing, but that last man, those decisions, players, when players leave the ground to make a challenge, that instantly changes it from a yellow to red. If they're off the floor, then it's a dangerous challenge. Players don't understand that in the sort of law, in the terminology of law, the difference between reckless and dangerous, and sometimes it's those sort of arguments that you'll get the big flashpoints. So it's, I mean, the differences between yellow and red is a word that some people would say leaving the ground is just reckless, but we are taught that if you leave the ground, if a player leaves the ground to make a challenge, he's out of control of himself for that time, so it's a red card. It's just those little decisions that are the toughest to make sometimes, especially when the game's so quick. Even at Sunday League football, the players are now 9 times out of 10 athletes, and that will sound funny to some people, but
I completely agree with you.
the lads really look after themselves these days, and they're coming out of semi-professional football, step 3, 4, 5, and playing on a Sunday. And the game's so quick that those are the key decisions and the quick sort of decisions referees have to make.
Absolutely, and I completely appreciate that, because I remember, like I said, I'm talking well back now, when I did the course, they put scenarios on the board, and I'm looking at it from a football fan back then way, and I'm going, that's not a foul. I wouldn't want, and like you said, someone's just charged 20 metres and thrown their whole body weight in through the air onto someone's ankle. How is that not a foul? But I completely get that. Another one off the back of that. So you've made a decision to say that was your own.
Yeah.
And you can justify that because, straight away you've gone through, actually, I've seen this before, that's out of control.
Yeah.
But let's say you've based it on a decision from a linesman. So they've called offside. Have you ever had it where someone's called a decision, you've gone with it, and it's turned out to be wrong, or you've gone against maybe what they've put up, and it's kind of had the pro and the con effect of actually one time the linesman stuck his flag up and it clearly wasn't offside, because I can imagine at Sunday League especially, you get Joe Bloggs from one team, Joe Bloggs from the other, and I've seen it before, everyone's seen it, where everyone's offside for the next 20 minutes when it's a close game. Is that something you find more difficult than actually calling the decision yourself?
My part of the pre-match chat with captains is always that I'm going with the linos 100%. Until I think they're cheating, and then I would ask for club lino to be changed if possible, or if not, I would just have to have a word with the manager. And because club linos can cost their own team as much as they can cost the away team or the other team. Club linos cheating is probably one of the hardest things to deal with as a referee. You can never be in line to make those calls 9 times out of 10. The way some teams like to launch it, so all the referee is doing is running up and down the pitch, trying to keep up with play. If you have to trust that a club lino has the best interest of the game at heart. But I've overruled club linos both ways. I've played on, or I've overruled calls from linos a lot, because you can see that a lino's on his phone on the halfway line and flagged, or he's reacted to his mate putting his arm up and he just puts the flag up a second later. It's tough. You don't get if I would ever overrule an official, a fellow referee on the line, some of the best advice that I've ever given really early doors was just to own a decision. If you sell it with a strong arm signal and you're confident, even if you think you're wrong, then just selling the decision to players is sometimes half the battle. If you give a limp, if you put your arm out limply and you look sheepish, the players know that you're bottling it, or that you've blagged it. So selling the decision is really half the battle.
And I think you're right that I've coached sessions where I've sat at home, I've done a Rolls Royce plan of what we're doing this session, and I've turned up thinking on the bee's knees, and it's gone absolutely awful.
Yeah.
In my head, the lads don't know because I'm just making up as I go. Like you said, but as long as you assert yourself and do it confidently, no one knows any different. So I completely agree with you on that one. I've got, looking at your CV, you've done 3 Kent FA County Cup finals, 5 League Cup final appointments. My question off with them, the emotions before a game. So as a coach/player, before a cup final, I am not sleeping well the night before. I'm waking up buzzing. I'm being careful what I eat. I'm being careful what I have to drink. I'm not taking too much fluids on. I'm kind of overthinking everything, and I'm just excited to get out there. As a referee, do you get excited before a game? Do you sit in the dressing room ready to go? How does it work? Do you kind of G yourselves up? Because
it'll be exactly the same. The processes that we'll go through will be exactly the same for a cup final as a manager, as a coach, as a player will go through. So communication with the team, it'll all be done days ahead. You'll be obviously shirt and tie and all that stuff. Meeting time will probably be an hour before you would normally do it. So you'd look to get to the ground probably 2 hours before kickoff. All get together, walk around the pitch. I mean, of those, the 3 county cup finals that I had, I was an assistant on those ones. I was never in the middle, sadly, but still, it's a big deal.
A big point on that, mate, and you carry on a second. Is I think linesman's is a harder role than in the middle. But carry on what you're going to say.
Yeah, so the preparation for the game, as I say, is exactly like the players. You'll have a big pre-match briefing. You'll meet up with the team, walk around the pitch, do your quick pitch inspections. Although generally at cup final venues, it's all bang on anyway. But you'll do all of that. The guy in the middle will give his expectations to the senior assistant, who'll probably be dealing with benches if there's no 4th official. He'll ask you probably to keep a match record and try and stop and start your time with him, and then he'll give the rest of the team their briefing, and we'll go in, get changed again. It'll be G'ing up, all the pre-match stuff. There'll probably be music in the rest changing room. It's exactly the same as players, and I think players. There's a perception with referees that they're not there to enjoy the game; they're there to ruin it.
Yes,
and it's not the case. Every single referee that's refereeing football loves the game. They wouldn't do it if they didn't love the game.
And I think that's a good point, mate. Like you see it all the time. The game can't be done without you boys in the middle. But off the back of that, then, so you turned up to the game. You made a comment about before the game you speak to teams. How much prep for a ref goes into a match day? As a coach, we do training, make sure the lads who's going to be there, getting the kits ready, getting everyone in. What's your prep? So it's you've just ref the game on a Saturday or Sunday. That week's finish of football. You're looking now to the next weekend. What happens when you leave or get home on that Sunday afternoon, Monday morning?
So obviously, refs get their fixtures a month ahead of time. So there's usually get a month ahead of time. There's a lot of time to look up the teams. You look at the form, you look at where the teams are in the league. Luckily, FA Full Time is quite helpful to see cards and all that type of stuff. I mean, you shouldn't prejudge. You shouldn't prejudge a game or a team's performance in a game, but you just sort of notice trends of players with cards, and this is me personally, maybe speaking out of turn, but you do a bit of prep on the teams. Look at the form, look where they are in the league, look where the teams are. I do my homework. Part of the whole podcast is that I study teams anyway, and I know quite a fair bit about the teams that I'm going to be refereeing. But I would do my homework and just look after yourself. Obviously, I mean, I'm not an athlete by any stretch of the imagination, but it wouldn't be beers and all that the night before. It would be a good night's sleep before a game, especially for cup finals. It would be I might even have 2 nights of nice sleep, but we would prepare in exactly the same way as a player. We would do our homework on the opposition. Go on, mate.
No, I was just saying, I think you touched on a good point there of where you say referees moving. If I've seen referees referee from the centre spot, and they'll literally stand there all game, trying making decisions 30, 40 yards away, and you think, how can you see that? When you, like you said, you get to the point where you're, like you said, your diagonal runs. I remember touching bits like this. Like I said, I'm not comparing myself anywhere near your level, but you've turned up and you've done your running. I can guarantee, and I've always said this, a ref, if not more, runs than a player. Because I remember there was something in one of the exams, you have to do so much running, don't you, as well, in certain times? Don't you have to
There's a fitness test. There's a fitness test for the level 4 referees, which I might be wrong, but you need to be able to do 2,600 metres in 12 minutes. And then you need to do 2, I think it's 70-metre sprints in 15 seconds I might be wrong. I haven't done it, but in terms of fitness level, there's no fitness tests below level 5. That's just on aptitude, really. But the fitness and your movement is part of the 6 to 5 criteria. You have to mark the referees on that. I'm an observer as well, so I've observed referees, and the fitness and their movement and their proximity to play is something that you do look at on the observations. So it does come into play. But I wear a fitness watch when I referee, and I do between 6 and 6.5 kilometres most games. No. So, and I'm a pretty big boy still. So, but even I still manage to cover that sort of ground in a game. That will be more than a lot of players on the pitch. Yeah,
and you're so focused on the game itself, you probably don't even notice you're clocking up that type of mileage on you. But
no, not at all.
You go and watch the refs then as well, and I guess that means you do the grading, I guess, for local team, local refs.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy doing that side of it, or do you kind of feel like you're being like the headmaster, or was it?
No, it's fun. It's good. I mean, it's time. I'll be honest with you. One report probably takes you 6 hours to do. By the time you go to the game, watch the game, and then type up the report, it's a big sort of job. And whilst we don't do what we do for money, it doesn't. With my work and that stuff, that amount of time I haven't really got spare. So 6 hours to review one referee is a lot of time for, I think it's 23 quid or something like that. And whilst I enjoyed it, I feel like I don't really like criticising referees. I didn't enjoy that process of it, looking to pick holes in people, just because you're applying criteria to them. So, I mean, I've done 3 or 4 observations, but yes, with the podcast now taking off and my time being more limited with family and work, it's not really something I'd like to do. Also, it means the days that I would like to be refereeing, I would have to have weeks off to go and watch guys, so or girls. So I enjoyed it. It was an eye opener. I mean, I saw some high level referees being assessed as it was back then when I started out refereeing. I was an assistant referee on the Kent League then, which is Step 5, and to hear the way the assessors were sort of slating these top referees, some of them now sort of level 2 in the sort of National League system, and to hear the way these assessors were sort of criticising them, I just didn't ever fancy.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there. Football is a game of opinion, and you could look at a player or a referee in your case and think not having a good game, but someone else thinks they are. So, and it is a big opinion. You touched on something I want to move on to. So, criticising referees. Yeah. So, this is the penultimate thing, basically, that referees get, I find, is the abuse or the constant ear chewing you get from sidelines. I've seen it, and I've hands up, have been part of it, where you know your team's for a goal.
I have been.
Yeah, that your team's for a goal. I've been at clubs which we were told as coaches we scream for anything, and eventually the referee will give us something, and that was that was our approach. So from you blowing that first whistle, it would be any big tackle ref, and eventually you'll just start giving them. Because it'll be like we've constantly been on to, and I personally don't like that approach. I like to think if I do shout something to the ref in a polite manner, of course, it's because I generally have reason to, or it's because that typical fan approach of referee kicks in, not because I'm just being a pain in the backside. But that's something I've touched on at the start where I was on the line, someone gave me abuse, and it ruined it for me, and it really did. That was me gone. And for yourself, how do you cope with, you might not get any at all, but how do you cope with that? Because I'm assuming, I'm asking quite a big question here really, but before the game, do you get any abuse? And during the game, I could say you do, and then I can imagine after the game, depending what you've done in the game, depends what happens. Because I've seen it where it's kicked off hours after the game, they're still going at the ref. And talk us a bit about that.
I mean, I've been lucky in the 300 odd, 400 games, whatever I've done. I've only ever had to abandon one game, so that's something. But in terms of abuse, it's different depending on the level of football that you referee. I've refereed in the Skeffel League, our Step 6 division down here, where you got 200-300 people maybe at a game. And yeah, you're getting dogs all game. You're getting called this, that, and the other by fans because it's their team basically. They, some of the teams playing at that level have that amount of fans. I think it does depend. From fans and that, you can't do anything about it, and you can't really react because you've lost the game. As soon as you do that, you have to try and focus on the game in front of you.
Yeah.
In terms of abuse from players. You get it, but there are things in place to apply when you are receiving abuse from players, and it doesn't have to be being told, being called various swear words or pointing out that I've got no hair or that I'm fat, all that stuff. There's things in place to deal with that. So yellow cards or now the sin bin, which seems to
I've got. That's a topic we'll be going on to. We can go in depth in that.
Go on.
No, I was going to say, just want to touch on. So, I've seen it before where we were at step 5, and we were playing away. And that was like the level I'd just gone into. And I was sat on the sideline and I got abused. Like, even being a coach, just sat there because we celebrated a goal. And we got abused and the ref got abused for allowing something that happened minutes before, because apparently that would have stopped it, apparently. And I remember it really caused, and the abuse we were getting for it. And I remember after the game, this manager of the club was kicking the door in at the referees, giving him all this, and the bloke just sat there, and I thought, these old boys have turned up to do us a job. But I think it's a lot to do with the money as well. The club we were playing against had pumped a lot of money into their system, and so I think there's the pressure that comes with it. But as well, when we were in the bar after the game, the ref comes and sits with us, and everyone talks to him like normal. It's forgotten, and it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things put into football at that level where they have like a 30-minute calling off period, so no one's allowed to approach the referee after the game for half an hour.
Okay.
That's all to do with probably diffusing situations like you just said. Yeah. So if the manager had been sort of governed by that 30-minute calling off period, he wouldn't have probably done that. He wouldn't have been able to go near the referee for half an hour. There's things like that in proper football, in step 5, step 6 football. There's actually in step 7 now as well, I believe. But on a Sunday, I mean, I think it's just a bit more relaxed on a Sunday. You get the grief, but as soon as the whistle blows, players are putting their arm around you. If they haven't been sent off and been sent back to the changing rooms, players are putting their arms around you. And generally, the older I've got and the more experience I've got, that I wouldn't give it back in the same way that they're giving it, but I would just give them a look or ask them what they're doing, like what is the aim of this, because it's only going to go one way. Yeah. And generally trying to talk to the players. I'm not an old ref, I'm only mid-30s, so I'm one of the younger referees in the whole thing. The average age of a ref panel probably down this way must be 50s, so I'm still sort of a young referee, so I'm still able to talk to the players on a level, and I'll try and do that in a game. So if someone's chirping at me, then I'll just ask them to shut up, basically.
Yeah.
And it's basically that. And players seem to respond well to just being spoken to normally. And maybe the way some older guys communicate with players does cause confrontation. But generally, people listening to this might be laughing. But I will try and talk to players rather than going to cards straight away to diffuse those situations.
I think as a coach, I think when I see a booking within the first 5 minutes, I think that's set the tone now. Because after that, especially players from the opposing team that have just had a booking, say, are constantly chewing the ref. That was the same as that one. That was the same as that one. That was and the ref kind of puts a backbone. What also I don't agree with, though, is doing an early booking, but then thinking, oh, I've got to let a few slide now. Which I guess, though, that comes with experience of being on the pitch. And like you said, you've got 400 games under your belt. You've been around the block a few times. You've seen a lot of these players probably for the last so many years, so they understand there's a few refs that I remember when they first refed us, we'd be like, what is this bloke here for? And we'd be like, oh, it's hard. And that would be our team talk sometimes as well. That'd be part of it. Like, we've got blah, blah, refing us today. We know what he's about. Keep your mouth shut. Don't do this. Don't do that. But some refs, you'd kind of, you could walk over. But now, like you said, now they've got the experience under their belt. They're actually really good refs, to be fair to them. And I've noticed as well, you say, you know, about Sunday League and that, and I spoke to you about Sunday League footballers and comparing them to, your Saturday footballers, etc. on your podcast. And I think, this is just my opinion, so I might not agree, Sunday League is kind of a testing ground, but also is just as competitive, if not more, because you've got all different levels of players there and coaches. There could be a coach like myself there who's, I've done it for inside out for the last year plus, loads of players I've had come through. Or you've got Joe Bloggs who dad runs a pub and he's just doing it for the beers after the game. And then you've got some players who play Saturday League semi-professional but want to play on Sundays with their mates who are like not as good as you say at football, but they're just there for the crack, and you've got all that to deal with. And I found it more. I started a Sunday League team and I found that harder, a lot harder than these clubs which are already set up, already got the kind of rules and regs in place. But I know Sunday League is, for me this is just an emotional pull. You get everything and anything come through there. But my next touching subject would be, with regards, like you said, you do all that before a game. During the game, I know, like, if you bookings, you have to do reports, and it's very much you have to kind of quote what happened, etc.
Yeah.
If a player appeals it, you have to attend it, etc., etc. But do you think the FA puts enough in place for the referees, or do you think it's kind of they put the right things, but it actually makes it harder? Or what's your opinion? It might be all good, but
I mean, I've never had to go to an appeal. Put it that way. It's very hard actually for clubs to appeal without video evidence now. So whether that goes on the side of the county or the referee, that's up for you to decide. Whether they don't want to lose the revenue, they've made it harder for clubs to appeal. I don't know. I've not had any experiences really. I've had a discipline officer from county ring me up and say, you've not quite turned whatever happened. You've not really said enough to be able to put the red card through, and it's been quashed. And that's fine. That's just me being poor in my description of the situation, and that is what it is. But my experience with county FA discipline has been fine, really, on a refereeing level, certainly.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that, because where you say, like, they said there's not enough information into it.
Yeah.
You do these reports several hours after it happens, and you've got to remember exactly who did it, where on the pitch it was, what happened before, what happened during, what happened after, and I completely have sympathy, and I don't think it's not poor from yourself, like you said. I think it's just you have so much. You got 22 people to manage. And it's not managing like in a workplace where everyone's sat at a desk, say. You've got testosterone levels at the highest, everyone's shouting, everyone getting involved, and you've got to manage that. And it's a very difficult environment if you're not the right person in there. And that touches on to the next thing of yourself. What type of ref would you say you are, and what type of ref would you say would be, if you were looking to go into it, the correct manners as such? So
the type of referee I am now is massively different to the referee that I was at the beginning, and definitely different to the referee I was during the promotions and assessment time. So I went from being a new referee to going straight into the promotion system and being assessed. I felt like I was refereeing in a very robotic way through the observations and assessments, maybe showing a yellow card quicker than I would do now, for instance, because an assessor's there, then that's what they want to see. They want to see you applying the law and dealing with misconduct to the letter of the law, where sometimes common sense doesn't come into play with an assessor or an observer. So maybe referees. I didn't change my style through that whole promotion time. I refereed the same way because I didn't want to change my game for an assessor and have a bad game or not do things a certain way. So I stayed that way all through that process. And I do think that you become robotic to a certain extent where, not talk. If a player has clearly told you to do one during the game loudly, and everyone in the ground has heard it, including the assessor, then at that time you've got no choice but to show a yellow card. There's no choice, because if it's clear and obvious that an assessor would have heard it, then you have to show a yellow card or a red card, whichever, wherever the severity to your tolerance sat. But now, if that happened with a player, I would deal with the situation a lot different. I might go to the sin bin if it was in an aggressive way, but all types of swearing doesn't have to lead to cards. And different. I referee completely differently now. I'm more relaxed about it. There's a lot more banter in the game. I'm talking to the players constantly through the game, whether it's having a laugh about if he's had a go at me giving a throw or saying it the wrong way, then I'll give him a go the next time when he shanks his pass and puts it out for a throw on himself. So there's I'm a lot more relaxed about it now, and I think because I've met a lot of the teams that I referee a lot, I'm refereeing now better than I ever have done, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there. With having that relationship with a team, and you're more on a friendship level then, if you want to say. It's not friendship, but you feel like you can talk to them more.
Yeah.
I think you can control a game more because you're talking to them on their level. A lot of players turn up and they think the referee, like I said, wakes up in his black outfit, turns up with his squeaky clean boots on, and has never kicked a ball in their life. When actually, it's very much the opposite. There's a reason how they got there, and I've got utmost respect for referees, and I think, like I said, we find after the game, especially in the changing room, you could make a decision on the pitch. They know they've done something wrong. You haven't just decided to book them for no reason. They're just annoyed because in their head they've got to pay £20 fine or something now.
Yeah.
And that tends to be what they're more annoyed at than the whole situation. But I think absolutely that relationship on a pitch. When I started coaching, I went in, and if you go by the book is very good in the non-real world. That's how it happens. But realistically, the minute you get onto a pitch, the book doesn't tell you how to deal with someone taking their boot off and throwing it at you, let's say. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't say duck left and do this. So it's very like experience kicks in at that point. And I think going from coaching side of things, when I remember I'd done one-to-ones, mate, before. I'd gone around to schools before, and I had no fear with it. But the minute I went to like a males team, I remember thinking, my heart was racing, absolutely racing. And they say when you're under pressure in those type of situations, 70% of your ability goes. And I think until you kind of get them minutes and just throw yourself in, that's what I said to you on the podcast about coaching. You just kind of throw yourself into the deep end and just hit it head on. You can then deal with them things, and then next time it comes up, you think, well, you remember situations, how you diffused it or how you handled it to kind of suit the players, and I think you do the right thing. By the sounds of it, you go away, you look at who you're reffing, you don't just turn up thinking, well, I don't know who even this team are really. You're looking, you're kind of making it more like a sports fan, if you want to say, more personal experience as well. I think.
Yeah, I'm at the sort of stage now with refereeing that I'm actually I'm more excited for the bigger games. The bigger games will bring the best out in me. Yeah. I'll be more interested in it if I've got referees as assistants on the game, or even if I'm an assistant on the game in a big one. I just enjoy it more. The pressure. When there's something on it, it just really does bring the best out in me. It makes me focus. If you're in a game, and no disrespect, but if you're in a game where it's a top of the league against the bottom of the league in a lower division, and it's 7-8, 9-0, it's so hard to stay in the game and concentrate, because you've seen the scenario so many times where you don't really need to get back into the top team's half because the ball ain't going there. But you need to keep doing your movements and you need to keep following the ball. But you just know the scenario so many times. You've seen it so many times. That those games for me are the hardest ones to perform well in, because it's easy to lose the concentration. But the top games in top divisions, or if it's a top of the league clash, first against second, or there's been a bit of needle in the game before, where it's those high pressure situations, and it is high pressure in context. It's only Sunday League or bottom sort of rung of the step system games. They're not massive games in the whole scheme of things, but to those players, that is the biggest game, and they're the games where I will referee my best.
But they're, like you said, mate, they are the ones where I think you get a mixture of talents and personalities which you have to deal with. Would you look at doing this as a career? Is it something you're trying to pursue, or are you kind of going podcasty way? I know you've got Little Uns, you've got a full-time job, you've got the podcast, we've got your refereeing, you've got potentially got to go and check out rest. What kind of, if you had to pick a direction with it, if someone kind of gave you a genie right now and said, where do you want to go with this? Would you pursue it as a full-time?
I think I didn't start refereeing until I was 28, 29, so the sort of ship had sailed. If you do a promotion every year and get to wait and do what you need to do, it will take you about 10 to 12 years to get into the football league and referee. So starting at 28, the time it was never with me. I like refereeing, but I don't love refereeing. I don't live to referee like I feel like you have to do to go through the system. I mean, I did enough to get to step 5 when I started level 5. Sorry, when I started refereeing and found out about the promotion scheme, I thought, okay, well, I don't want to be on the bot. I don't want to be a level 7, and that's not to be disrespectful to referees that just want to do the course and then referee whatever game they want to do. For some reason, I didn't aim to be the best, but I aimed to not be on that bottom rung, and I wanted to do some sort of I wanted to do the promotions. It was important to me to do that. But yeah, in terms of refereeing, I do like it. I enjoy refereeing 9 times out of 10, but I don't love refereeing to the point where I think I could be doing some of the trips that these guys are doing down to from us to the Kent coast on a Tuesday night, leaving work, doing a day's work, and going down and being an assistant on the Ryman League and all that stuff. That's not for me. That's not for me at all, really. Had I started at 16 or 18 or something like that, I think I might have been more interested in it. But I think I got to a certain level where it was my aim when I started refereeing to referee with. Firstly, I wanted to do a game with other linos, with referees as linos or assistants. That seemed really good at the time. And then it was to referee games in the top division of whichever league I refereed in. And I managed to do that, and I managed to get cup finals now. And that sort of ticked a lot of boxes for me in refereeing. That's all I ever wanted to do, was to get to a level 5, referee with assistant referees, not all the time, but at least, have a few games, which seem to happen once or twice a month now, which is lucky, and then get some cup finals, and that's done. And in terms of a refereeing career, it's very, very hard to become a referee in the Football League. People think it's just assessments and just you'll get there in the end, but it's so not. It's really not. Like, it's so hard. It's so hard to become a Premier League referee. The work they have to do, and the scrutiny and all that stuff that they have to go through to get there. It is unbelievable.
Yeah, and like you said, I think because a lot of people focus on the playing side of it, the coach side of it, you guys do get forgotten how much work goes in to getting you guys where you are, and I think that's why I wanted you on this today, because I think it was important as a coach to get your perspective on things, but as well for people to understand how you get to where you do. And that also leads me on to, you've got your podcast, the SELK Grassroots, and obviously on Twitter, mate, it's very successful. You've got the best couple of thousand nearly, you're getting towards your plays. I think you had one about 30,000 at one point, didn't you?
Yeah, so 32,000 as of today,
You're getting
been mad.
So you're really, that's kind of, that snowball is kind of getting bigger and bigger. And I that's how I got to know who you were was through Twitter, speaking to other people in the networking community of football, and I kind of got pushed and said, look, get in touch with this guy. He's got a brilliant little podcast going. And I'll be brutally honest, when I did it, I was thinking, right, let's see what it's about. And I saw, I was like crap, this is good. This is like a decent, like big setup here. And then when I spoke to you, you were very like very humbling, very like, you know, this is all I do and I enjoy doing it and etc. But it has, man, and you get a lot of views on it. Talk a bit about how you got that started and kind of where that's going.
Right, so again, it started on the back. I suffer with mental health, basically, and I needed something to channel some of that energy, use that anxiety and that sort of energy into something good. And I was refereeing anyway, and as a dad, you'll probably agree with me that there's not too much that you really get to do that's just for you. Yeah. If you've got kids or you've got a wife or a partner, you're always doing stuff for other people. And I just thought I wanted to do a podcast, and I thought, well, what's it going to be about? Do I want to talk about the professional game and add to and be one of 1,000 podcasts? I listen to the Football Ramble and things like that, and do I want to do another one of those? And I just thought, no, I don't. And what can I talk about? And you've got a lot of YouTube teams on the scene in Sunday football, and I thought, well, it's a growing scene, especially in the southeast and southeast London or South London, especially. It's a real growing thing. Sunday football is a passion here, and I don't know if that translates across the country, but down here, it's massive. And I just thought, well, I'll do a podcast and talk about grassroots football. And really, it's just gone from there. We started off with one podcast talking about the Ilberton and Bromley Sunday Football League and Westfire, the Woolwich and Eltham Sunday Football Alliance, the two leagues that I refereed on, because I felt I was credible to be able to talk about teams and give my view on the teams. And it sort of snowballed from there. We've got three shows that go out weekly now. The Sunday League show, we've now brought in the Croydon Municipal Sunday League for next season. We've got an All Around the Leagues podcast, which is a review, preview, results type show where leagues put in their own recordings to form one large show. We cover 10 leagues on that now. And we've got the Saturday Manager, which is a guy called Nick Pitt, who is a manager of a bottom of the division in the Kent County League, which their top division is a Step 7 league, but Farnborough Old Boys Reserves are in the bottom division, and he just tries to give a real sort of view on what it's like to be a manager of a club at that level. And it's the Selk podcast is real. We don't shy away from talking about bottom teams. We certainly celebrate the top teams, but we try and give every team in their leagues a mention at least. And some games will be reviewed and we'll dwell on some games, but it is our mantra. We've nicked it from the Labour Party, for the many, not the few. And we're not keen. We're not fixated on giving SE Dons, who will be a familiar name with everyone, coverage. Exclusively. We want to give the Dog and Duck FC as much of a mention as them, because they're all in the same system, they're all in the same league, and everyone deserves their shout. And all we try and do is to bring light to the good things that are happening in grassroots football, because it has been in a bit of a trough up until about 2 years ago. Grassroots football was dying, and I don't know why, but in our area it's on the up, and it's gone from strength to strength, really.
Yeah, absolutely, and I completely agree with you on that. I think for many people focused on just the Premier League, Championship leagues, even like League One and League Two weren't well covered up until the last 5 years, and it's something where I think everything's kind of coming down that scale. But for some reason, non-league, like if I remember, for example, I started my Instagram page purely. All I wanted was some simple, easy drills where someone could look at it, go, bang, like you sat in a car, you're thinking, crap, I've been at work all day, what can I do? And I just want to pop on something and quickly grab it. And that used to be, as well, when I used to finish playing or coaching, all I wanted was a page or somewhere I could go and hear about, like, Oxfordshire, because we don't have very good coverage, I think, around Oxfordshire with, like, local teams, how they're getting on. And it's something where, especially when I spoke to yourself, when you bring that to light, mate, there's more people actually interested in that, because they're you want to say the real people of football, because they're not superstars. They're like Andy Dave, the postman. Do you know what I mean? They are the people, mate, who want to see this, and because you're doing it, like you said, it's all free, it's all there, and you speak to everyone and anyone. It's interesting, and people will relate to that, because oh, did you see the team around the bend? They're on a podcast which has got 30,000 views, and it kind of it sheds a light on that kind of lower leagues, and that's kind of what I try and do. A lot of the players I bring in as well is kind of show these players through what I do, and I think unless someone does it, it will die off. And I think what you do, mate, is fantastic, mate. And when I came on, I thought it was brilliant. And listening to the podcast, there's so many different kind of philosophies you hear, or opinions, but everyone's kind of in the same community of it's non-league football, and we're doing this because we love it. So I think absolutely, mate, what you're doing is fantastic. But one thing is what I want to ask: did you think it would turn into what it did, or when you started, did you think it would just be a few teams maybe and a few retweets there? But did you think you'd start getting like 32,000 views, mate? It's crazy.
I didn't know, but it didn't bother me in a way. I wasn't doing it to become big, and I don't think it is big, but I wasn't doing it to be. Initially, it was just for me to channel some kind of some bad energy into something good. But yeah, I mean, we've managed to become part of the furniture, really, of the of South East, the football down here. Teams mentioned at us for friendlies and stuff, for retweets, and we're part of the community now. It's a growing content creation community now, that's going from strength to strength down here. I never thought it would be as big. I never thought I would be under some of the scrutiny that I do get because of it. If you make an opinion, teams aren't shy to voice it, which is fine. That's up to them. They can voice their.
That's the referee come out in you, though, the thick skin at that.
Well, no, I mean, but I can only give my opinion. If I don't give an opinion, we don't slag teams off. We're ref friendly on the podcast, but we accept criticism where it's fair. But if I can give my opinion on a team, then they should be able to give their opinion back to me. It's just how it's all sort of delivered, really. If it's fair and constructive in the way that we do it, then I have to accept it and take it on the chin.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, but I really appreciate you coming on today, mate. And it's really been good to get a perspective from a referee and talk a bit about what you do. Just for a few seconds, give a shout out to your podcast, mate. If anyone wants to have a listen across to it, because I would advise them to.
Yeah, so our Twitter handle is at Podcast Selk, SELK. We're available on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Castbox. If you use an Android device, that's my sort of podcast library in there. We have a podcast released on a Monday, which is the Sunday League show, on a Wednesday, which is all around the leagues, and Friday is our Saturday Manager show. At the moment, we're recording a lockdown series called The Big Interview, one that Thomas was on. We're doing 50 podcasts in 50 consecutive days. We're currently, I think we're on number 19 today. We've recorded up to 32. So we're releasing a podcast every day for the next, 30 days, which has been great, actually. It's been great to have that hour a day to talk to people about our football and a bit of escapism from the monotony of the lockdown.
No, and absolutely. And anyone else listening, give it a listen to. It's brilliant coverage on there and real good content. But again, thank you, Andrew, for coming today and speaking to me. I really, really appreciate it, mate, with your busy schedule. And I'd like to get you back on when we're all back up and running, and a few games are back in under your belt. It'd be great to get you back on, especially if you're doing some big games. Let me know, and I'll see anyway on Twitter. But let me know, and we'll stay in contact. And it'd be good to get your kind of before and after opinion of it all, etc., and cover it a little bit.
Absolutely happy to help any content producers that are listening. If you want to get on and have a chat about stuff, I'm more than happy to help you guys out. You've all helped me, so I'm absolutely supportive of the community.
You're a star, mate. Appreciate that today.
Thank you. Cheers, mate.
See you later, bud.
Cheers. Bye.